When it comes down to it, when you're trying to build an audience on social media, you have to share value with no expectation of return and with no ask. Meaning you're not asking your audience to do anything except to accept what you're offering them for free.
Today I'm joined here with a very special guest, Philip VanDusen. Hi, Philip.
Hey, Daniela. Thanks for having me on the show.
Excited to have you in the show as well. So for all of our listeners who don't know who you are, who are just getting introduced to you, can you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are, what you do, what your channel, your brand is all about?
Sure. My name is Philip VanDusen, obviously, and I'm a branding consultant. I had a 25 plus year career in big corporations and big agencies as a creative leader doing branding, both for inside client side stuff or agency stuff, working with a host of the Fortune 100. And then about 9 years ago, I went off on my own and started my own branding consultancy. And now I work with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses, helping them leverage branding and design to build their businesses. And I focus heavily on brand design, obviously, as well as content marketing. And I've built my own agency through content marketing. I started a newsletter initially and ran that for about 6 months before I started my YouTube channel. And I've been putting out a YouTube video a week for 8 years now. I've got 550 plus videos and 290,000 subscribers. I also have a podcast called the Brand Design Masters Podcast, where I talk about branding and design and entrepreneurship. And I'm excited to be on the show with you.
Excited to have you as well. So your journey has been quite interesting because you obviously started your entire business, your entire growth was prior to your presence on social media, right?
Well, I built my own business entirely on social media. So I worked for the man. I worked for other companies, big global design agencies, big corporations like PepsiCo and Gap Inc. As a creative leader running design departments. And then when I went off on my own, I realized that the clients that I wanted to have, small to medium-sized businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, they were completely outside of my normal network. And so I had to get clients. And so I had heard about this thing called content marketing and thought, I'm an introvert. So the idea of doing pitches or going out and finding clients to me was just like absolutely scary. So I thought, if I can do content and have my clients find me, that's the way I want to go. That's going to be my jam. So that's what I did. And I joined a mastermind group of other entrepreneurs building personal brands. And so I started developing content. And within a year of starting my YouTube channel, about 85% of my clients were coming to me directly from YouTube.
Insane.
It is insane. Actually, I was shocked. And it's continued that way. Most of my clients come to me through my social media channels.
So what do you think is like the reason for your success, for how well your social media channels have been? Because I think a lot of people have similar goals to you where they want to use social media to sort of, propel a business or anything along those lines, and they struggle. I've seen people who I have like someone comes to mind who I've known has been trying to grow on social media since I've known this person, and it's been like 5 years. The growth is so small and so stagnant. So what do you think has been the secret to your successful growth on social media?
Well, I think part of the secret to my success was the fact that I had a 25-year career helping people build brands before I started trying to share my knowledge. And when it comes down to it, when you're trying to build an audience on social media, you have to share value with no expectation of return and with no ask, meaning you're not asking your audience to do anything except to accept what you're offering them for free. And so when I started my channels, I decided I was going to share everything I knew in my 25-year career on social media for free, no expectation of return. And so that's what I did. And I very quickly realized that people valued it. And not only was I attracting an audience of entrepreneurs and startups, but I was also attracting an audience of creative professionals who I was teaching how to have successful creative careers. And so I kind of built two audiences at once. I was actually just on a coaching discovery call before we jumped on this podcast. And I was telling this young man a story about how the differences between building a brand on social media and how you generally do it if you have an established brand. And so the story I tell is, if you are a musician and you are going to give a concert, right? If you've established a brand, you sell tickets and people will buy the tickets for $100 and they'll come to the show. They enter into the auditorium, and when the auditorium fills up with 1,000 people, then the band comes on stage and they play and everyone's happy and they clap and then the audience leaves. Building an audience on social media and a business on social media is the exact opposite. Meaning, when you're building a brand on social media, you are the musician. You go on stage to a completely empty auditorium and you start playing your music. And you play your heart out, and then after 10 minutes, maybe one person comes in. And then you continue to play harder. Another person comes in. Then you ask the audience, what would you like to hear? And then they tell you, and you start playing that song, and then go, oh, wow, this is really great. And they text their friends and they say, you should come to this concert. And then a couple more people come in, a couple more people come in. And over time, your audience will grow. But the idea is that you have to get in there and play your heart out to an empty room for a long period of time before your audience actually shows up. And that is the place that most brands have a hard time, A, understanding, and B, maintaining consistency when they're not getting any feedback or audience at the beginning. And that separates the men from the boys in that activity, because doing that, putting out that sort of energy and focus and, revenue to produce content when you're not seeing results of it right away, most businesses do not have a stomach for it. And most individuals get disheartened and they feel that I'm not, no one's listening to me and I'm not getting the, emotional payback that I thought I was going to get. And they stop.
Yeah, I think like I've seen a lot of problems with consistency with businesses and influencers when it comes to trying to grow on social media, and I it makes a lot of sense. But I also think I've noticed that there's also people who are on, like, the other side of that, where they might have a lot of disposition, but they're just there's a lot of, like, not very good content that's being put out. Because 'Cause I've noticed, like, I used to work at another company where they were trying to really hard to grow their social media, but they were just having really atrocious ideas. And I mean, they kind of had me and other sort of the younger people look into it because they thought maybe we had a little bit more insight because we were more up to date with like internet trends and things along those lines. And we would look at like their ideas and we'd be like, no, like this is not very interesting. This is not very good. Or like, we think this, and that. And the company would still go with the terrible ideas because they were just like, no, we can't like do this, and that. And then they would sort of go in, have reviews, and then the content would perform terribly. And it was just kind of this cycle. And I would just kind of look at it from the sidelines like, well, yeah, I mean, you guys have to really just kind of like change up the type of videos that you're making.
That's very true. And that's why a lot of companies struggle with social media, companies in particular, because there's a lot more cooks in the kitchen. So, someone comes up with a content idea and then it goes through 3 rounds of approval and the idea gets dumbed down, or they decide to play it super safe. That's another big problem companies have, is that they try to play things super safe. One of the biggest problems that companies have with social media is they make it about themselves and not about the audience. Because companies, they're like, how do we sell more widgets, right? How do we get people to buy more of our thing? And they make the content about them. It's their hero's journey, rather than making it about the audience and what the value is that they're delivering to somebody else. because that's what social media is about. It's like, how do you deliver value? And then over time, what I like to call it subliminal reciprocity, meaning the more value you give someone over time, they start to feel like they want to reciprocate that good feeling to you. And they will buy your product, buy your service, tell their friends about you. But until you deliver enough content and good stuff to them, they're not going to do that. And most businesses get self-serving in that process way too fast, because consumers these days can smell a sell a mile away and they go running for the hills. And so if you are by any means self-promoting in that process, people will turn on you really quick.
That's actually really true, because I'm thinking of how I sort of started to I went back to Duolingo just because I kept getting their TikToks so much. And they never like make videos about, oh, you should like purchase our product. Their videos are always memes, and they're funny, and they're always like doing things that are very useful, and I watch them for entertainment. And I think like I watched so many and I enjoyed so many to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get back on Duolingo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are companies that do social really badly, and there are ones that do it really well. One of the ones that I recently, well, not recently, it was a few months ago, but they popped to the top of my radar was Wendy's. And Wendy's, as Twitter has kind of started to go downhill. Wendy's has a very kind of pithy, they have a very pithy, irreverent, snarky person writing their social media posts. And it's entertaining, like you said. It's entertaining. They're super sharp. They don't suffer fools gladly. And it takes a lot of guts for a company that's as big as Wendy's to allow someone to be the voice of a company in that sort of way. And so there's a level of trust that companies have to place in their social media teams to keep it really small and tight in terms of the people who have authority to post stuff. Because as you know, one wrong post can make you go viral, and then suddenly your brand is sunk. But it's a wild west out there. It's a risky place. You got to show up. You got to take some risks. And if you do it right, you can really win.
Yeah, because I've seen like when you do a risky thing, like if you get a good reaction, it's gonna do really well for you.
Yeah, it is. And the more you lean into the things that people are enjoying, like you said, Duolingo, right? They probably got some great feedback on the meme sort of entertainment stuff that they were doing. And they just leaned into it because they're benefiting from the brand halo of that. The content itself is not what's really selling Duolingo. It's the fact that they're delivering something that people are enjoying, and people are saying, oh, Duolingo bought me this? Oh, that's cool. I'm going to go help them,
Yeah. I also think like youth is very important, especially when it comes to what social media does. Because I've noticed the place where I used to work before, I think the sort of the target audience for this company was very much parents and older people. I was working in like a company for baby products. So obviously they were a lot more of an adult crowd. And I think like that sort of changed everything, because the way that adults were using social media was very different to how I would say everybody under 30, was using their social media. So I think I remember the sort of the marketing, the person who was in charge of marketing, they would always tell us like, because we would like sort of give them ideas, and our ideas were always very like useful and very like, oh, you should get on TikTok and you should do these memes, and this is like a trending audio. And then the head of marketing, like that person would always say like, you guys, this is great, but the people that are buying our products are not 20s, right? Like they're older people, they're parents, they're middle-aged people, so they are not on TikTok like that, and they're not listening to trending audios, and they're busy. And like I guess it was really eye-opening of like, I think the secret to success with that is also sort of learning what the audience that you're trying to reach is going to engage with.
That's very true. And that is the basic 101 of marketing, is that you have to understand who your customer avatar is and what value means to them. Meaning, where do they show up? What kind of brand tone of voice do they listen to? What sort of messaging is valuable to them? And what resonates with them? Because if it doesn't resonate with your target audience in a way that they want to hear you, then you're just, you're adding to the noise on social media. And that goes that way in any kind of, advertising or marketing in any sense, is that you have to speak in the language of your audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think like nowadays, especially digital marketing has become very trendy and like the thing. And I think everyone's trying to figure out how to be successful with it. So it is really important to sort of understand. I think, I don't know, I was pretty young before the internet, so I don't really remember a life without it. But
I can tell you all about it if you ever want to know.
I can imagine that, it was different to get
It was different.
with something, right? It was a lot less easy, or I don't know, less personal, because I feel like nowadays I look at someone making a video, right? Or I see content being created, and then I feel some sort of parasocial relationship. Whereas like before, I think it was more just like you look at an ad, you read a post, you see those banners on the street, and that's pretty much how you're going to get promoted. You don't really know who made the ad, what it took for them to post it.
Yeah, that is the main paradigm shift that came with social media and the internet, was that marketing became a two-way street. It used to be with traditional marketing, television, radio, outdoor, print. That was push media. It was push advertising. Content marketing is pull media, meaning you're putting content out there, but you are drawing the audience in, and you're looking to build a conversation and an audience and getting feedback on what it is that you're sharing. It becomes a two-way street. And it's the brands that don't understand that social media is a two-way street that fail. And the ones that do succeed are the ones that are listening to their audience. They're responding really quickly, because we also know that social media, moves at the speed of light, and
Oh my gosh.
10 seconds is too long to not respond. And so that sort of building that level of communication was a major paradigm shift in the mentality of marketers, that they didn't understand that at the beginning. And this, when I say the beginning, this was like 15 years ago. They didn't understand that it was no longer push media, that the audience had a voice. And this is the beautiful thing about social media too, is that you can have an individual influencer who has, through a following on social media, a soapbox that is as as loud and visible and influential as some of the biggest brands in the world. There are YouTube artists, individual influencers who have tens of millions of followers. They have more followers than the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have subscribers combined. And they can give a bad review to something, and that stock will drop 20% overnight. And so it's that kind of influence that us, the audience, the person on the street who takes the time to build an audience on social media, we have as much power and influence as the gigantic brands do. And that's a major, major shift in the power structure of marketing.
Yeah, definitely. Because I do think that now there's more, there is a bigger space for people to sort of have an opinion. It's not just like the brand telling you. And I think the expectation is also changed, because I think before, I guess the consumer was a little bit, I don't want to say dumber, but definitely less aware. Um,
Certainly.
but I feel
Absolutely.
like as a consumer, I've noticed that people are a lot more aware. They're a lot smarter. They're like, this is a marketing strategy. You don't have to be a marketer to know that they're selling something to you. You don't have to know about, really specific terms, like stuff like, you don't need to know like lead gen and all of these like jargon things that I think back then people maybe were not as aware of. you are aware that like this is, they're doing this to manipulate me, or they're decorating the truth. This is a lie, blah, blah, blah. And like, I think a company doesn't have that much leeway to sort of exaggerate something to promote a service or a product, because a review is going to be there telling you otherwise. So I think like it's a lot harder out there for you to sort of promote yourself in that way. Whereas before, I think you could just take a really pretty picture of a hamburger and say like, come to my restaurant, and nobody was going to bat an eye.
Well, on Pinterest, I would say a pretty picture of a hamburger still has a lot of power. But I think that you're talking about something that's really important to understand, which is the level of sophistication of the consumer has been elevated massively in the last decade. And because of that, the marketers themselves have had to elevate their game and their sophistication in how to talk to people in a really authentic way to sell their products and services. Because you can't just do a push advertising anymore. You can't just, put the pretty picture of the hamburger up and expect people to, kind of beat a path to your door. The other piece of this, Daniela, which I think is important to recognize, is that we're also experiencing right now, and this is a sad truth of the last maybe 4 or 5 years, is the death of truth. There is so much misinformation going out right now, and such a oversaturation of what is considered news or facts that are not facts, or they are conspiracy theories, or they're some sort of manipulated truth, that it's very difficult for us as consumers to even understand what truth is anymore. And so that, for marketers or brands who are trying to sell products and services, makes that bar even higher in terms of having to be really, really authentic and really transparent about what it is you're doing and what it is you're offering. Everything from, what's in your products, to where they're produced, to who your employees are and how you treat your employees. Where are your manufacturing facilities located on the planet? All these sorts of things, which are aspects of, used to be behind the curtain. They used to be behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, that you didn't see the workings of the machine, which you can see now, and they are important. And if you don't recognize them and be really truthful about them, when the truth comes to light, it's going to come and bite you in the butt. So you have to be like super transparent about that. So the level of authenticity for marketers and businesses is higher than ever. One of the other things that I'm seeing trending right now, and I'm putting out a video on YouTube about social media marketing trends today, in fact, is there's a huge trend going on in terms of lower production value. Like, because of AI and because of the tools that a mom at her kitchen table can do to produce high quality video, is that anyone can produce amazing quality video now. And so the idea of doing content that is more raw, less produced, full of more,
Flaws.
kind of, flaws, exactly, that is the stuff that's cutting through, because that's the stuff that people believe. People don't believe polish anymore. The more polished you are, the harder it is for people to believe you.
Yeah, because they're gonna think like, oh, they obviously read this and practiced it like 100 times. Why should I believe him or her, or like whatever they're saying?
And
I
the great thing about this, Daniela, is that it is a boon for small businesses and entrepreneurs and startups, because they don't have the budgets to produce like super high quality videos. So that levels the playing field, because all of the big brands are trying to dumb it down and do lower production value, and we can't afford it anyway, so we can do it, right?
I've
Which is great.
I've noticed, because it's really interesting how this trend of like celebrities and rich people, and like I see like really big brands making sort of content that looks like they filmed it out of a potato. I'm like, why? I mean, you're like a millionaire. Why are you sort of taking pictures on this really bad camera, or like, having this really bad angle, or like this ad from this company looking like it was edited on Microsoft Paint? And, and it's like, because it's sort of this new aesthetic that has also sort of come up, and people trying to sort of replicate that authenticity, that I think comes really easy to the smaller companies and the normal people.
Absolutely. Very true.
Yeah. Well, Philip, it's been great having you today. I think you've actually, all of your experience is really interesting because it gives a lot of insight to a lot of the things that, a lot of our audience wants to know about growing on their social media. A lot of the people that use Penji are small businesses that are trying to grow and they're trying to grow their social media. So this has been really great for us to talk. Before we finish, though, I do want to give you a space to talk about any projects that you're working on or anything interesting that you might want to tell our audience to check out, where they can find you. Floor is yours.
Oh, awesome. Well, if you want to find me, the best place to find me is on YouTube. If you go to Philip VanDusen, if you go to youtube.com/c/Philip VanDusen, or just search my name, I'll pop up. But the one thing I want to offer your listeners is a free tool. And it's a tool called Personal Brand Wheel. And it's a proprietary tool that I developed, but it's perfect for small businesses too, who are developing content, because it basically leads you through kind of a 12-step process of how you approach creating a message, where you show up, how you engage, etc. It's a way to evaluate where you are right now and where you need to go. So if you go to philipvandusen.com/PBW for Personal Brand Wheel, you can download this tool, and it's got instructions to it and prompt questions, and I think you'll really enjoy it, and it can help you with your social media.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be adding all of that to our description so that everybody can go and click links, find you. And excited to sort of see all of your future work.
Thanks, Daniela. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming. All right. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you for the next episode.